Last spring, a student encampment protesting the war in Gaza popped up at the University of Toronto.
Dozens of tents set up, students now occupying this portion, about 150 students and faculty here and more coming.
It quickly became one of the biggest in the country.
And they've set up kind of a checkpoint almost, like a table where they're asking people who arrive here to check in with them, identify themselves. It did get a bit heated. There was a little bit of shoving and some yelling back and forth.
If you don't remember what campuses were like in the spring of 2024, here's what you need to know. In April, thousands of students and faculty at hundreds of universities and colleges around the world started setting up tents on the quads, protesting the Gaza war.
Dozens of U of T faculty members have come out to publicly back the protest.
There's a lot of faculty here. We wanted to make sure our students were safe, our students were heard. But of course, we also support our students and their demands. And as a Jewish faculty member, I felt it was really important to be here. I'm here with a lot of other Jewish faculty and a lot of Jewish students. We're here because we support absolutely the demands of the occupation, and we support Palestinian liberation and freedom.
Most protesters wanted their schools to sever all financial ties with the government of Israel, Israeli academic institutions, and companies that sold weapons to its army. They refused to leave until their demands were met.
Day 2 of the encampment is significantly larger.
The 5th day of the encampment protest.
For a 6th day.
It's been a week since pro-Palestinian.
27 days into this pro-Palestinian occupation and
downtown campus for 2 months now.
While hundreds gathered here today in a rally in support of the U of T pro-Palestinian encampment at King's College Circle. This rally organized by the Ontario Labour Federation. Lots of different unions here.
If the University of Toronto makes a move against the students, they'll have to go through the workers first.
Jewish students felt under attack, shamed, and stunned that universities were allowing an environment that implicitly said, if you support Israel, you are not welcome on this campus.
There's the potential for Jewish students and other students not to be able to participate fully in university life, that they won't be able to attend classes, that they won't be able to take their exams.
In a counter-protest, hundreds of Jewish students and faculty members attended a rally on Wednesday against rising hate on campus.
40,000 people killed!
Robert Schwartz is a Jewish professor who teaches at the university.
I feel somewhat threatened. I'm very concerned with some of the slogans that are on the signs and some of the chants. It really feels quite threatening.
Israel bombs, Canada pays! How many kids did you kill today?
Heated debates over Palestine and Israel are nothing new. But on post-secondary campuses, they're on a whole other level. Many students are at an age when they are truly independent for the first time. Many break away from their parents, embracing new cultures and progressive ideas. And they meet people who challenge their preconceived notions about the world. I was the president of Hillel at Concordia University in September 2000, right at the start of the Second Intifada. Protests broke out the first week of school, and I found myself face-to-face with groups like Solidarity for Palestinian Human Rights and other Palestinian students, whether in the dean's office or at Reggie's, the on-campus bar. Back then, it seemed easier to have these conversations and arguments. Speaking to students today, you hear about a very different atmosphere. On today's show, what the leaders of tomorrow are learning and unlearning on university campuses today. I'm Avi Feingold, a rabbi and a writer with the Canadian Jewish News.
And I'm Yafa Sakeja, a Canadian-Palestinian entrepreneur and volunteer with the Canadian Friends of Standing Together.
This is In Good Faith, a podcast about open-hearted questions from open-hearted people. Sponsored by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation with support from the Ronald S. Roebuck Foundation.
In this show, you'll hear from community leaders, activists, experts, and regular folks, Jews and Muslims, Israelis and Palestinians. We'll be having conversations, just hearing them out. Can we, as Canadians, have a space to just sit down across from one another and talk?
Actually, I was enjoyed in half my life, so you could say the first half. So politics always ends up being a topic on the dinner table.
That's Rasoul Kailani.
A lot of Jordanians are originally Palestinian, and it's happening next door. So even when I was young, that issue was very significant in my family, and I kind of took that with me when I went to Canada.
Do you mind also just restating in your own voice, like, what is the degree that you're taking at U of T?
Peace, Conflict, and Justice, which is similar to international relations, but you take history. It's encouraged to do a language even, sociology, the whole nines basically. And the idea is kind of to make you a cultured person. So if, God willing, you do become a diplomat, you're one who's well-rounded.
So I actually grew up and I was born in Canada, but both my parents are Israeli. So I grew up speaking Hebrew. We have a lot of Israeli culture at home. My parents always talk about moving back to Israel, and I'm like, I don't know.
Ellie Shram is a fourth-year student studying pre-law at the University of Guelph Humber. Did you have a lot of, or any interaction with Muslims, with Palestinians, Arabs in general growing up?
Yeah, so since we do come from Sephardic and Mizrahi background, like I had a lot of Middle Eastern friends growing up, a lot of Muslims too, Persian friends. I have a lot of Persian friends, even still to this day. I work with Palestinians. So does my dad. Like, we have a Jewish business.
Ellie's family runs the Bagel Nash chain of cafes around North Toronto. Ellie's dad, who's from Haifa, took over the business from his parents, and they stayed true to their roots of coming from a mixed city, hiring Arabs and Palestinians in their cafes.
So it's not like I've been super sheltered my whole life, but at school, I find it super different, like on campus, because it's like a more polarizing example. Like the people that I would surround myself with growing up were like usually like-minded, or we just wouldn't get into politics. But nowadays, I've like noticed a shift where it's like, okay, now I have lost a few friends and it's like harder to talk about certain things.
I was going to ask something to Ellie, but I guess I really want to know from you, Rasoul, as well. So maybe we'll start with Ellie. What was like, do you remember that day? Like, Ellie, what was like October 7th like for you? What were you hearing?
Yeah, October 7th was just like hell for my family. A lot of friends and family friends and cousins were affected by October 7th, which was hard. It was definitely like a shocking moment, I think, for a lot of people, not just me.
Yeah, I remember when it happened, reactions changed as the news was going on. I remember when it happened, I was just like so shocked. But also I remember thinking like the reaction is going to be awful. And I remember my mental health kind of plummeted for a couple of weeks. I remember I was on the phone with one of my best friends, this Palestinian. They were just talking about like how emotional you get seeing these things because these people look like you and they talk like you. And also bigger picture, right? Forget like being an Arab or a Muslim or a Palestinian. Like we're taught our whole lives about certain values relating to human rights, relating to war crimes, Geneva Conventions. That just like, it kind of blew up in my face that like none of these standards matter anymore. They only matter for certain people. But when I realized like all of this slaughter, I'm not going to dance around it. All of this slaughter was happening and October 7th was kind of the justification. I realized like, okay, because you have a generation of Palestinians and Arabs and Muslims and even like the world over of people who are going to hate Israel. So I don't really know what the Israeli government's objective is here, whether it's stupidity or something sinister.
My family, they're from Sderot, which, if you know where that is.
Right on the border with Gaza.
Yeah. My mom, like, I remember she was on the phone, like, all night talking to one of her friends who couldn't find their son. And they were hiding, like, in their house, and they could see, like, the Hamas terrorists, like, in the window.
And while her family was going through this trauma, Ellie was living in a whole different reality. She saw anti-Israel posts online, posters in school hallways.
I visited the U of T encampment, and I came in with a few of my friends.
Ellie grew up having frank conversations about Israel's government and policies. She's eager to talk about it, and a part of her expected the encampment protesters to be the same.
But what I didn't realize was it was the wrong crowd of people to have these conversations with, because we got harassed. Like, we came in, I was wearing a Magen David. We had people, like, following us, recording us. We got into the encampment, but they didn't want to let us in the beginning. And then when they did let us in, they were like following us around the entire time. And then stuck like a sticker on one of my friends' back and like ran away. Like just a random person just like stuck a sticker, and it was like something about Israel. I don't remember what it was, like death to Israel. I don't know. And the way they felt about it solidified how strongly I wanted these conversations and how they didn't.
I think that the encampment was good insofar as it brought a lot of attention to a problem.
When the encampments were set up, Rasoul didn't sleep in a tent, but he still took part, bringing food, joining rallies and protests, and he appreciated what the encampments were trying to do.
Our universities are, and some people don't like this word, but I'm not going to dance around, our universities invest in genocide, basically. They invest in defense technology. What does a university have to do? So I like the attention they brought to that problem. But in terms of vocabulary, some people, I'm not saying most, some people did act in a way that was impolite and you could say vile. I don't think that's representative of the entire encampment. But in terms of slogans, they're easy to be misunderstood. And there's kind of like a logic in being a diplomat.
Rasoul and Ellie don't know each other very well. They don't go to the same school. They didn't grow up together. But they have two things in common. They're open to having difficult conversations, and both of them are student leaders at a campus group called Bridging the Gap.
At least twice a semester, students, Jewish and Muslim, Israeli and Arab, sit down in a room for around 3 hours together and talk.
The meetings start apolitically, chatting, eating, getting to know each other. After that first hour, though, things start to get more formal and serious. They arrange into breakout groups and start to get into the meat of the prompts for that session. For the next 2 hours, in this safe and private space, they hash out all the thoughts and fears that have been simmering inside. Do either or both of you remember the specific moment when you were like, this Bridging the Gap thing, I got to be part of this?
I think it was after I visited the U of T encampment. I was like, no, this has to stop. Like, the polarization on both sides, it's got to stop. And like, if I can do something about it, I'd rather just do it rather than just like sit at home and like complain all day about it.
Do you remember, Rasoul, what drove you specifically to go to Bridging the Gap?
Listen, I'm not an Abraham Accords type person. Like, I don't want peace for the sake of having peace because it's nice. Of course, like, we're all Abraham's children and it would be nice to get along. But peace has to come with justice, right? I'm still going to advocate for the Palestinian people. However, I don't even think this is an opinion. I feel like it veers on fact that there's not going to be some mass movement of Palestinians out of Palestine, nor is there going to be a mass movement of Israelis out of Israel. Like, we're both here to stay, and to this end, we both have to talk. So, not only do we have to come to a solution there, but even in Toronto and in Canada and America, we go to school together, we work together, so on. We want to be able to have conversations. But also, part of there were two kind of incentives from like a Jewish and an Arab angle. From the Jewish angle at the encampment, when you have certain slogans, it's not going to make them feel welcome. Like, they straight up said, I don't know if this environment is welcoming. Maybe it's just because of what they hear. Maybe it's actually not welcoming, but it's irrelevant insofar as that they don't have a place and Bridging the Gap offers a place. From an Arab or Palestinian perspective, I view Bridging the Gap as a voice for the oppressed, like as an opportunity for the oppressed to share our perspective with Canadian Jews and Israelis who will never get to hear my perspective in regular circumstances. So I fumble that, and people talk about, this is normalization that you're talking to them. No, I don't think so. I think that it's actually important for us to have them understand. So I also felt like, look, I don't want to be like a complete sellout. At the same time, you're not caving by just sitting down with them. You're actually sharing our valuable perspective.
Actually, I remember the first time I went, I never wanted to go again. I said to myself, that's it. I'm done. I'm too angry. Like, I'm going in here angry. And I leave even more angry than I was when I came in. I wasn't used to that space yet.
Someone came up to her and assumed she was Ashkenazi, even though her family is actually Syrian.
That's something that I had to sort of get used to, is that the fact that some of these people genuinely don't know, like, anything about Jews. Like, this is my time to really correct these people and say, actually, no, I'm not Eastern European. I'm a Middle Eastern woman who has fair skin. I don't know why it is, but it is. it's like those comments that were triggering to me, but also like I had to understand like where it's coming from. Like these people are actually, they don't know. And it's my time to like, you know, start correcting people and be like, actually, no, this is this way. And I remember we got into some political conversations, particularly about the Israeli government and Hamas. I was like, I think you guys should all condemn Hamas. I don't think they're good. They're horrible. They're oppressing Palestinians. They're oppressing Israelis. And their view was like, oh, you know, if you say we should condemn Hamas, like you should also condemn the Israeli government. And I didn't understand that. I was like, why should I condemn my government? Like, I have family who served in the IDF. They're amazing people. Like, I don't think that they're bad people. And that took me a long time to it took me like a year really to really digest that conversation. And now I look at it on a different angle and I'm like, okay, it's okay to condemn things that you might have not in the beginning, but now you're kind of looking at it like, okay, you know what? I don't think every action was good by the Israeli government. I don't think they should have done this, and that. And that's hard for a lot of people, that especially on my side, especially on the Zionist side, it's very hard to look at Israel and be like, okay, this was wrong. I have people in my life who still can't even think that whatever is going on is wrong. It's definitely hard. It's not for everyone. So,
I mean, that was a lot to digest. Firstly, like just off the bat, yeah, Syrians tend to be whiter. My mom's mom was Syrian, and yeah, she's like fair skin, green eyes. So it's
yeah, and blue eyes.
It's especially ignorant, like for someone from like the Levant, especially. But on a bigger note, it's valuable. I've had the reverse situation. It doesn't necessarily bother me, because it's what I signed up to do. But I've had conversations with certain like Jews, Israelis, Zionists, what have you, and it's just like their assumptions about Arabs and the Arab world, or like their perspective of Palestinian history. It's just like not to be dismissive, but like goddamn, like they have a lot of like key facts that are just missing for them. And you know, like I would find it crazy, but I also know that in these institutions they're kind of taught a different history. For example, I have a lot of friends who went to Hebrew school growing up. Like either a Jewish high school, they're just like on like the weekend. They don't even know what the Nakba is. So I'm kind of getting that, like I'm learning a bit about my compatriots, and at the same time I get to share my perspective the same way with Ellie. She got to explain to them like, no, I'm a Middle Eastern Jew and there are Middle Eastern people that look like this. And as an aside, I think a benefit of joining Bridging the Gap for Palestinians and Arabs or people that care about the cause, because a lot of pro-Palestine people don't like speaking to Israelis or Zionists. Sometimes you're just going to run into them in like a classroom setting or just outside, and they don't know how to like react in a discussion. Like it looks bad for us. So if I'm thinking of it from a purely Palestinian Arab perspective, and let's say I talk to Ellie and Ellie gives me something to think about, I have to think of how to reply. I have to incorporate their perspective. It makes me well-rounded and it brings us closer to a solution overall.
Rasoul, can you talk more about what those conversations around the encampments were like? Like, what were you hearing from your Jewish classmates? Did you feel like there was mutual understanding, or were you in totally different worlds that didn't understand each other?
The particular people I ran dialogue with were more understanding. I can't say all of my classmates were people you could have these discussions with, but they had their concerns. I remember kind of terminology. The question of whether it was anti-Semitic was a big one. I don't think they necessarily thought that the people in the encampment were anti-Semites, but they had, you could say, observations about certain rhetoric, like globalize the Intifada. I've talked about this with Ellie before, but you know, Intifada in the Palestinian context is an uprising. And the first Intifada was largely peaceful, for example. It was only when it became Israeli policy to break the bones of demonstrators that it became a bit violent. But Intifada for Palestinians represent a national aspiration for a state. This is what I tried communicating. And I always thought, just as an aside, I'm like, why the hell are they so bothered by Intifada? You know, how is this anti-Semitic? I never got it. But they explained to me that for them, they associate the Intifada with the bus bombings of the second Intifada, where people would blow themselves up in cafes and civilians would die. And That's not to say I don't use the word intifada anymore. I changed my view on what intifada represents. But at least from that, like, I understood why they're thinking that way. And so coming from their background and their upbringing, they feel a certain way. Just from my background and upbringing, I feel a certain way. And I don't agree that intifada is like a terrible term that we shouldn't use. But at least now that I understand why people are upset, it kind of helps me approach dialogue better.
You know, you were talking about this word intifada. You understand that there are people who are, for lack of a better word, triggered by it, even if it might mean in your context as something more neutral or whatever it is. On the flip side of that, there are people for whom genocide is a very, very tough word to be able to throw around. And it's very difficult for them to be able to understand why that word is even being used. Are there any principles within bridging the gap that helps guide these types of discussions and to sort of say, well, we want all the perspectives here and we want to be able to talk, but certain words are off the table? Or is it just we respect you and you can say whatever you want and you have to and that's the most basic way that we move forward?
The key thing is to be respectful so we can have a good dialogue. And oftentimes that's not even something we have to enforce, because you'll come to realize that when people are face to face, they tend to be. Whereas you see with online discussion, it's very polarizing just because, if I'm behind the screen, I can say whatever I want. Whereas when I'm in person, I have to think. But no, we don't censor words because that really defeats the point. I don't like when people nitpick on words. I try to, be as diplomatic as possible. But when people nitpick, it kind of defeats the point. People are dying. As I said previously, there's videos of children with their limbs cut off, and you're like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. I'm not saying words don't matter. I'm just saying it's not the focal point of the discussion. And secondly, the one thing that actually bothers me so much is when people use their offense. It's okay to get offended, it's human, but it's when people use their offense as a means to censor. Sometimes I'll be trying to make a point. They're like, actually, this isn't hypothetically, this isn't racism, it's xenophobia. I'm like, okay, but that's I'm still making my point. Address my point, don't address that. When people try to censor discussion by being offended, this is what bothers me, because one, it would render bridging the gap entirely useless. Let people say what they want. I'm gonna call, for example, what's happening in Gaza a genocide. Someone might not agree, but actually talk about why you disagree and not just be upset about it, because that's how we truly move forward in terms of having a discussion. That's kind of the idea. So the only thing that's off limits, I suppose, would be censorship, and I imagine my colleagues would agree.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Rasoul. I think that those words, yes, they have meaning, but it's not productive to the conversation to just be like, oh, no, it's not a genocide. It's not a genocide. Oh, it is. It is. And it's not. It is. It's not. It's not productive. And I try not to use those words when I'm having dialogue just because people get triggered very quickly, very easily. But when it comes to dialogue, it's just being respectful. It really just is.
Bridging the Gap offers a model for how things should work. Don't shut down debate. Open up to it. Sometimes it seems like society is moving in the opposite direction. Canadian Palestinian youth are afraid of being fired, expelled, or deported for expressing their views. I know this fear. My parents were punished for joining peaceful protests demanding equal treatment.
Rasoul and Ellie show us what a university is supposed to be like. A forum for exposing yourself to concepts that you didn't have growing up. Changing your mind, changing other people's minds.
My great uncle, God rest his soul, was he was not only a diplomat, he was a prominent journalist in Jordan. And I said, Ammi, what advice do you have for me, given that you're so experienced in this sector? And he said, find out everything, look at all the sources. He didn't say, look at the good sources. You need to find this source this way. He said, look at everything. That's what a good journalist does. But I think it's what a good intellectual does. I think it's what a person who's honest with others and themselves does. Because even when I hear things I don't agree with, I at least understand them. And that brings me closer to a time where we can both live in peace in Israel and Palestine. People aren't dealing with Palestinians anymore. There's a wall between the West Bank and Israel. No one talks to each other. So we're not understanding where we're coming from. Bridging the gap the aim is to kind of improve the communal relations in Toronto, because it is our city and Canada is our country. and this benefits our homeland.
Like about a year after October 7th, I just thought the world hated me. Like I just thought the world hated Jews. And I still think that to an extent, just because of the amount of hate that's been going on. And you really feel it. Like, you really feel it. And I think that we're forgetting that on both sides, we just want to work, we just want to live, we just want to care for our kids, we don't want to live under bombs, we don't want to be scared to go to the bus. It's gotten so bad to the point where, like, I'm scared to show that I'm Jewish in Canada, which, that's scary. That's scary, and it's not okay. And we need to start treating everyone with like a little bit more kindness and a little bit more grace, because at the end of the day, like, we are not the Israeli government. Palestinians are not Hamas. Like, we need to start treating each other with like respect. And again, these are hard conversations to have, but when we do dialogue, I like when everyone has a chance to speak. I just want to clarify that, like, these are safe spaces, like very safe spaces for people to share their opinions. And yeah, it's awesome.
I was skeptical, but when I actually had it explained to me and then began engaging, I realized that this is the future. This is the place where we're both supposed to end up, Israeli and Palestinian, Arab and Jewish and everyone in between. So I plead to all listeners, you know, no matter from what background you are, like, give this a chance, you know. You might hate it at first, but believe me, when you come in it and go in it really believing in it, you will learn a lot about others and you will learn a lot about yourself.
This has been In Good Faith, a podcast produced by the Canadian Jewish News, sponsored by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, with support from the Ronald S. Roadberg Foundation. Our production team is Zach Kaufman and Michael Freeman.
If you think someone you know would appreciate this episode, please share it with them.
Thanks for listening.